I am your host, Scott Schaefer. You are watching A Theory of Nothing. I've pondered this before and then kind of dismissed it, but I want to bring the topic back up for the sake of conversation in this video. We all hear the term "we're crazy," it's confabulation, we're misremembering, we're falling into a collaborative summation of false memories and the like. Now, running hypotheses and theories are that, one, we're jumping through multiple realities. We're moving in and out of multiple realities, multiple dimensions, same topic line, multiple timelines, same thing. And that's thinking of it from like railroad tracks, string theory basically. In quantum mechanics and quantum physics, it's string theory. Then there's the other thought process of our history has been altered or changed via time travel. And there's some that feel that those two kind of correlate together, and some that postulate they don't. Then there's the belief that reality is just being altered by either God or by the devil via the allowment of God giving the devil dominion over this realm. And then one other is that we're actually living in a spaceship, that we're all just kind of sitting in a simulated reality within a spaceship, and that you never get past a certain level or whatever, kind of like Dark City theory. And then the other one is that we're living in a simulation, whether we're in life pods like the Matrix, and we're humanoid with awareness via brain processing and stuff like that. But when you go into the Matrix kind of hypotheses, you start getting away from conscious and soul energy and stuff like that, because people are basically, the humans are farmed, and then they're put in these pods, are plugged in, and they're basically we're batteries. And then there's straight simulation, whereas we don't even exist. We're basically computer code, a video game, as it were. And all of these postulate the point that we, who are aware and awakened to the Mandela effect, the quantum effect, are not having confabulatory memories, not having false memorization, and that we are being maneuvered, or that the reality around us is being maneuvered, and that we just remember things the old way. But the thought that I want to just kind of bring up for conversation right now is, what if the people in this, in what we're currently observing as reality, were not the NPCs? The ones who maybe see changes and don't give a shit, or the ones who just don't see any changes at all. And we classify these people as NPCs, like, right, non-player components. But what if we are actually the ones who are NPC, as it were? Let me explain what I mean by that. That doesn't mean that we're not, a non-player component per se, but that we are, in essence, the unique character of the game, in the sense that What if our consciousness, our memories, are actually being manipulated? Those of us who actually see the changes and accept the changes. What if that's just mind manipulation by either aliens, the government, the simulation program, God, the devil, any of those things? We have no way to verify what realm of the universe we're in, Sagittarius, Orion belt, or anything. We're relying on what we're being told by astronomers and scientists at NASA and the like. Okay. That theory kind of justifies a lot of things, like items disappearing and then seemingly reappearing. We have this happen all the time at the house. I need to get some mustard. I open up the refrigerator and there's no mustard in there, and I scour the whole thing and I look through it 2, 3, 4 times. And then I go into the pantry and I look and there's no mustard in the pantry, and I just get frustrated, and then I get ready to settle and I grab something maybe different to put on whatever it is we're eating. And then my wife will open up the fridge and the mustard will be like right there, right in the front shelf. Or even I'll open up the fridge one last time, like 10, 15 minutes later, or 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later, whatever, and boom, there's the mustard like sitting right smack down in the front on the top shelf, like right at eye level. So if we are being mind manipulated, that's very, very strong possibility, like through harmonic resonant frequencies and different things like that, that it's screwing up our ability to comprehend the reality in front of us at the moment. And then something changes, or whatever, the pocket, the bubble, or whatever moves out, and then all of a sudden we can find it. So it's not that the actual objects are materializing and dematerializing, or that we're moving into an alternate reality, one where it is there and one where it's not there, but perhaps it's just that our awareness, our consciousness, is being somehow manipulated and blocked. The other part of this is observing planes not moving, right? My wife and I are all the time in the vehicle together, and they're moving just fine, but for now. But we'll constantly observe planes in the non-motion. I even had one of my subscribers talk about it, that when she lived out in Phoenix, that she used to observe it all the time, and it tripped her out. It was like, to her, it was like horrifying. I even have one other sub who he works over near the airport here and lives here in town, and he finally mentioned that his wife had actually just noticed it for the first time not that long ago. Again, if it's our conscious, those of us who are the awakened few, as we call ourselves, Mandela affected or quantum affected, maybe it is us being deceived, as it were, to observe these planes in a stall, to observe all this strangeness and everything else. And I'm not saying by any stretch that is what I believe. I'm just saying that what if? It's just another, theory of nothing, my channel name, right? That is a possibility. Now, that could force into question self-doubt, but it shouldn't. Because if we are basically, those of us who are aware and awake, are basically the science experiment, right? Be it whatever type of experiment that is, then we are not in control of that. And it doesn't mean that we're crazy, or that we're psychos, or that we're losing our minds, or any of those things. It doesn't mean we have bad memory or false memory. It means that we are being manipulated by some force outside of our control, okay? Which is the same hypothesis that is true and accurate of every one of these hypotheses, right? These theories. We are being manipulated by something outside of our control mechanism. Period. We don't know what that is, and we don't know what's really happening. A lot of people who are smart and in different fields of quantum mechanics and different things like that, and who understand things from a digital perspective, and that all, they all have within their niches the thought process of all these different things. But again, we go back to observer. My wife and I used to be very, very in sync with our observations about reality. And then here in the last few months, and it's been real random and not consistent and off and on, and I think I've seen this messages from a couple of my subscribers that all have different observations too, that all of us, even though we seem to be communicating with each other, whether it be physically or via digitally through the internet, that we have varied observations of reality from one another. Some of it is at just a lag in time, and some of it is a totally different historical reference. And I don't mean fully just with the classic historic reference, dating back to childhood. I mean within the last, like, maybe few weeks or month of observations of reality. My wife and I have been doing that when we go out. We do food deliveries on the nights and weekends for a little extra scratch here and there when we want it. And the good thing about that I really like about that is not just that I make extra money, but it allows me the time to actually be on the road and observing my reality in a constant daily state. And it's crazy because we have like some new apartments that are going up over by Santam Mall, and the land was flat forever. Then they put up a chain link fence, and there were signs that were starting to go up, and we're like, oh, okay, no big deal. And then like a day later, there was all these stairwell towers fully constructed from masonry, ground up, including the stairs being set in there already. And it was like one day. Now that's impossible. I mean, unless you had a ton of man crews out there to do it all, you could actually set the brick, but you wouldn't be able to actually put in the stairwells and all that stuff. And typically the stairwells, they're welded, they got to be dropped in, or they're stacked and welded in place. A lot of different things. And it would be an impossible feat to do that overnight. That one is one where my wife and I both observed it. But there was another apartment complex that was further up the road in a different location, and yet we had a varied observation of that. I had a very similar observation as this one that happened near Santam Village, where for me, I remember basically one building being partially constructed, and then like a day or two later, there was about 6 or 8 buildings in the same complex that were fully constructed. Not stuccoed 100%, but they were, walls all the way up. And they can do some fast construction, but not that fast. And my wife's observation was, no, they've been that way for several weeks. Now, don't quote me on that, because I don't want to put words in her mouth. She gets so mad at me when I do that, and she's going to watch this video later and probably tell me my business. But at that moment, that was our discussion on stuff. And we've had that happen a couple times, and we used to bat back and forth at each other that, oh, you're not, my spouse. Oh, you're not my spouse. And it wasn't right of us to be doing that, because we both have our conscious, we both have our symmetry of consciousness from each other's experiences when we first came into the Mandela effect to almost every event leading up to the conversation. So we've reserved to never say that again to each other, and to try to understand that it's not that she's a different Ruth Ann and that I'm a different Scott, and that there is, the more esoteric version is there is no Ruth Ann, there is no Scott, right? Those are names given to the vessels in which we reside, passed down by our parents that procreated and created this physical vessel. So, but that the consciousness of Ruth Ann and the consciousness of Scott aren't necessarily not the same. You've heard people throughout the community have always talked about, oh, well, they've been put in this weird reality, and their husband is not their husband, or their wife is not their wife, and they're having issues. And that typically more so stems from just the spouse not at all being aware of the Mandela effect more than anything else. With Ruth Ann and I, we are both fully aware of the Mandela effect. And every now and again, our give-a-shitter kind of stops giving, because you start getting so inundated that sometimes it gets overwhelming. But in general, we both care about it. We both still look at it. we kind of get into it a little bit because we have different thoughts on different things sometimes, and that's fine because we're playing it off of each other and trying to figure out what's going on. I'm far worse than her. I'm an asshole most of the time, and I'll get strong-willed about it, even though my channel is A Theory of Nothing, and I'm open to try to hear different people's opinions. I do get a little opinionated about it when it sounds like I'm being pushed, and my opinion is less about I'm right, you're wrong. It's more about I don't know that you're right, and don't close your mind up to a single path. I've done that before. I've talked about it before in some of my other videos where, I'm pretty sure CERN had a hand in it and everything else. And I still think, I still don't think that our mind is being manipulated versus everyone else. That we're drinking the Kool-Aid, and that the Kool-Aid that we're being given is all this craziness versus the other people of the Kool-Aid of reality is just normal and everyday. You're seeing so many glimpses of it in the world of these people with this confabulatory memories, right? Of the way that we do remember things. Yet when it's proposed to them, it's as if they're taking a download of information, almost like they're being self-corrected by the system. And again, is that really happening, or are we just observing that happening? I don't know. But it's just another theory that I wanted to throw out there. I haven't really heard anyone talking about it from that actual vantage point, where that perhaps we're the ones being manipulated versus everyone around us, versus even the world around us. Perhaps the mind in itself is fallible, right? That is a reality. But to each of us, our memories are 100% not fallible, right? They feel ingrained, that this is what you know, and a lot of us have the exact same memories, especially on the major stuff. And it's a hard pill for us to swallow that we perhaps, for our entire lives, those of us that are, not just doing videos, but subscribers to people doing videos and everything else, that we perhaps for our entire lives have been a science project, an experiment. How can we say for certain that that wasn't the case? And or that it's perhaps that we, and I wouldn't know how they would do it, but then again, they spray the skies with chemicals, they do all sorts of stuff, we don't know that the memory today has not been superimposed into whatever we think it was for 20, 30, 40 years ago, okay? Because it feels like this is the same memory I've had for the last 40 years, give or take, right? Things are very, very vivid, very crisp, versus things that are sometimes blurry. The answers to the questions are still out there, and I kind of feel like a lot of us within the community who are doing YouTube videos have kind of given up on seeking the answers to the question, or that perhaps it's they've been redirected for some reason. I mean, maybe some impact in their life. I don't really know. I'm not going to drop any names on anybody. You guys, if that speaks to you guys, that you feel that kind of same way about some of the YouTubers that are doing this stuff in our community, then this video would really speak to you. And it's kind of been sucky a little bit. I mean, I'm still watching the videos. I still watch other people. I'm still subscribed to them. But some of this stuff, especially when the people are doing the collaborative video, not videos, but the live chats, live stream live chats, that they're getting a little bit monotonous. A little bit the same old, going on and on and on and on and on. And that there's just nothing new under the sun. And that perhaps could be by design. Now, there's still new Mandela effects that pop up, new quantum effects that pop up all the time. I know Scared Performance, that's his main forte, is trying to do the new discoveries and things like that. And there's some other YouTubers who do kind of the same stuff too, is their focus is on that. And then some of us who have been in the community for a while have kind of pulled away from another Mandela effect, okay, another Mandela effect, okay, another Mandela effect, right? I mean, it's almost pointless to even look at these Mandela effects anymore. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that there may be some tie-in and some connection to it, whether that be a mechanism to wake people up or a mechanism to test, manipulation memory. And again, I'm not saying that that's what's happening to us. I'm just saying be open to the possibility. Closing yourself off to any path of discovery is, I believe, detrimental to yourself in sanity and in reaching the end of the path. And I don't know that we will ever find that the end of the path in our lifetimes. A lot of people have been talking about, near-death experiences or actual death experiences. My wife and I both share that. I know that I had tried to commit suicide when I was a child by overdosing on pills, and had an out-of-body experience, and the white light, the whole gambit, and was told my time is not over, that I have work to do, and then I was sent back in. And then when it happened, I felt myself like, when I had the out-of-body experience, I felt like I was sinking into my mom's bed when I did it, and because I was in her bedroom when I did it, laying in her bed, and she was at work. I stayed home from school claiming I was sick, overdosed on a whole bunch of pills, felt like I was sinking into the bed, and then my body lifted up out of it, and I could actually see myself without actually rotating my body, but I could actually just see myself and coming up, like I was having it from both perspectives and all perspectives. And then in the afterlife type of experience, it was just not a white light, but it was just, everything was just white, like there was just this void of any color whatsoever, so that your eyes couldn't discern anything. And then a voice that wasn't being necessarily spoken to me, but was like kind of in your head type of voice, but in a different tone, told me, it wasn't my time, that there was work to be done, that I had to return. And then I felt myself rushing back, and then I could see myself like I was falling back into my body. And then I snapped to, probably maybe 35, 40 minutes after I'd taken the pills had gone by, maybe an hour. And I didn't throw up, I didn't have to puke anything up, but I was just perfectly fine. Bottle was still empty. I mean, it was still sitting there and it was completely empty, but I was perfectly okay. And other people have told me similar stories to that. Maybe not the same after death experience, but similar stories. Also, there was another time when I was driving on the road and I was completely obliterated drunk, before I was even 21, when I first moved out to Arizona. And I swear that I had passed out. When I passed out, I had a vision that I had driven my Chevy S10 teal colored pickup truck, and this was a single cab back in the day, off the edge of the freeway on the 101 to I-17 truck ramp. So here's where we're talking about vivid memories. Sorry, not to the 17, to the 51. It was a 101 to the 51 because I was living up in Tatum and Bell at the time. And that when I passed out and I had gone over and I went over the rail, through the rail and rolled down the embankment and got hit by a van. And then all of a sudden when a flash happened, and then I was parking my vehicle in the apartment complex. So I thought I had just passed out drunk and had false memorization. And I think sometimes when we have the pass out drunk phase of things going on, that there are some times when it's that. And I think other times we pass away, and then we get, we come back to. And some people say, oh yeah, they're instantly sober. And at that time, I couldn't, that was so long ago, I could remember everything up to the point of the, oh shit, I'm not dead feeling, and back away, but then not knowing anything else in between. So my wife has talked about that. She's had several experiences too, and a lot of us, it seems like a lot of us in the community have had these kind of experiences. And I don't know if it's more so in a location, in a locale, whereas some people haven't had those experiences and others have, or just specifically here. Now I know my buddy John, Photo Helix, if he watches this video, he's going to be wagging his finger at me because, I know he's told me about some experience that he's had, and I'm not going to share it, but that's why he's so staunch in his belief in God, in Creator. And I've had my experiences. The one that happened when I was a child, I thought for sure that I was, I had visions as a child that I was going to be like zombie apocalypse, but not zombie apocalypse, but just end times. That's back then when I was studying the Bible with my grandmother and different things like that, and reading about the rapture and everything else. And I thought for sure, because of that experience, that I was going to be a soldier in end times, that I was going to be left here during the rapture, after the rapture had happened, to battle demons and to battle the devil. And held that belief, and for a long time. I don't know now, if that was just religion pushed onto me to create that thought, or if that's a possibility. I mean, anyone who's hyper religious may say, "Oh yes, that's going to happen, and your rapture's coming and all that stuff." But that supposedly happened so many times in history. Year 2000, year 2012, which was supposedly the end of the Mayan calendar, was a big thing, and yet nothing necessarily happened. Or it may have, and maybe our world ended, and our conscious moved unilaterally into another vessel existing at the same time. I don't know. But whatever it is, it may be that I never have experienced any of those things, right? And again, that the pill was put down my throat, as it were, to have the thoughts, to have the memories of all that stuff. But they're very, very vivid, and it would be very creative of a programmer or government or whatever to put those thoughts into me. And that's a private, even though we've all had maybe near-death experiences, that's a private experience that I happen to have. And even if one or two people were to share almost an identical experience, they're still not the same experience, and it probably didn't happen at the exact same time as mine did, in my memory. So things like that push me away from the thought of we are being mind manipulated, and that we are being controlled, and we are being deceived, and everything else. But it could be because of incidences like that happening, whether you are aware that happened to you or you're not aware that had happened to you, that perhaps because incidences like that have happened to us, we are obscured from reality, desynchronized a little bit as a resonating harmonic frequency for our consciousness, in a way that the molecules and particles within our consciousness operate, that perhaps we are out of sync with everything and everyone, but in sync with each other to some degree. Not obviously perfectly synced, because if we were all perfectly synced up together, then we should all be able to communicate with each other without even speaking a word. Like I should be able to do a video in dead silence and just running through my conversation in my head but not actually using my mouth to say anything. And every one of you should be able to clearly, if we're synced together, every single one of you should be able to clearly hear and understand what I'm saying. We're not there yet. That would be cool if we could all kind of get to that point where we could communicate with each other via thought exchange, right? I mean, that would definitely be like a superpower, as it were, or just a next level awareness. Another thing, all these self-proclaimed gurus of New Ageism and self-awareness and things like that, there's bits and pieces of each of them that I find contain some merit, like anything else. From the science perspective, from the religious perspective, I think everything contains a bit of truth in it. And perhaps the truth of us and why we have what I was thinking, like us being affected. Perhaps the experiment was on us, and our consciousness was shifted, was altered, whatever the thought is on it. That perhaps there's a bit of that, but that we are still who we are. Our memories are still what we are. But that perhaps we are part of that experiment that we were actually experimented on as a global experiment, but that only some of us were affected, and perhaps because we are, again, desynchronized with the harmonic resonance of our existence at that time. Still to date, humans are a unique species on this planet versus any other species, with our conscious awareness, self-awareness, and all that stuff. There's similarities to animals, but then we're a million light years more advanced in a lot of ways. So, I don't know. Like, subscribe, share my video. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about everything. Let me know if any of this video at all resonated with you in any way. Let me know your experiences if you're willing to be open to it. You're always welcome to email me at a.theory.of.nothing@gmail.com, and we could start a dialogue together, and that can always grow as much as you want it to, as much as I can dedicate some time to it too. I mean, there's some subscribers that I started off that way, and then we exchanged phone numbers, and now we'll text back and forth a little bit every now and again. It's not a everyday, all day thing, but it's like I do with my brother John, Photo Helix. Every now and again we just drop messages to see how each other's doing, and especially if something weird happens, we'll let each other know what's going on, and it's just a quick little quirk message. And him and I talk for hours, as I know he does with a lot of people that he chats with. So it's nice to not be going through this process of whatever it is alone. That there are so many of us, so few of the world population, but so many of us that have come together and have found each other and can communicate with each other in whatever way and capacity that we can. And hopefully, if I don't resonate with you, that you find another YouTuber who's expressing themselves, who's standing on their soapbox and professing their truth and their observations of their reality, and that you can find some resonance with them. And perhaps that is the truth of reality, is that the path of the variation of the weirdness of the Mandela effect, of the quantum effect, is not meant to be a one size fits all, and that it's actually specifically geared and defined, just like people are in fields. Some people are more artistic than others. Some are more musically inclined. Now, a lot of that can be trained, but there are some people that are just like savants, right? or artistic or mechanical. I'm artistic and mechanical. I've always been that way since I was a child. If I want to figure out something, I will take it apart, figure out how it works, and put it back together again. And if I can't figure out how something is broken, I'll try to figure out a way to fix it. If I give it enough time, I can do that. So all of us are geared a little differently, and perhaps that's by design too. And perhaps that's designed to keep us separated, in packs, as it were, so that we can't come together fully and blow the doors off the lid, as it were, of what the minion behind the curtain is, as it were, which perhaps is just one of us in a higher conscious awareness. Wouldn't that be something, right? Wouldn't it be something if this whole Mandela effect, this quantum effect, turned out to just be someone like us who had reached that next level of awareness, like even above and beyond Buddhism and all those guys, and they were just kind of like a mutant, as it were, what would be defined as a mutant by that, and they just have that ingrained ability, and they're Professor Xing all of us, to wake us up. That would be something, wouldn't it? Anyways, until the next time, I've been your host, Scott Schaefer. You've been watching another A Theory of Nothing video. I appreciate every one of you, and let me know your thoughts. Talk to you later.